So on the registration, we see about almost 3/4 of you are new. The first time you joined our webinar. So welcome everybody, but certainly glad to see some new folks on board. Just to give you a quick overview for you new folks, the Urban and Community Forestry Program is a federally funded program. We have a small staff. I'm Andrew Pleninger, the Urban Community Forestry Program Head. With me today, too, is our Community Forestry Coordinator, Sarah Hollis. Sarah,
Good morning,
you want to say
everybody.
hi?
Hi, everybody. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody. Yes. If you have any questions in mind, she's your first contact. So reach out to her and she'll get you to the right person if she can't handle your question. Also joining us is Justin Bennett. Hey, Justin, you want to say hello?
Hey, good morning, everybody. Good to see you.
So Justin is one of our urban forestry specialists. We have two other positions that are vacant at the moment. We're working to fill those. They provide technical assistance to all you out there in the field, working in each of our three regions, coastal, Piedmont, and mountain. Justin, at the moment, is kind of covering them all three of them, but he's going to be assigned to Region 2. Sarah does, as her title implies, does coordination of all of our activities, our financial and administrative help, and assists with outreach. We also have our NC district and county staff, because they're your kind of on the ground contact. We also have certified arborists out there that can help with some of your needs or guidance particularly. I won't read over what here we are to serve you. Our primary customer is municipalities and organizations, but also our staff, and we're here to provide urban community forestry expertise, education, training, and here we are to talk about grant funding opportunities. Okay, so in the end, for all of you, here are your primary objectives as you begin to look at applying for financial assistance. On the left-hand side here, I can't stress enough to read all of our web pages and the financial assistance documents because there is a lot here. This is a federally funded program, and therefore we have lots of requirements. And as much as we like to try and make things as simple as possible, there's a lot there. I think if you mine down to what it is you want to do and then work to the specifics, and we can help you with that. Not on the project side, but certainly on how to apply, we can answer those questions. But you can ask any question you want today, as you may have seen on the cover slide. So as I will go over the webpage, but just keep these highlights in mind. As you look, one of the things is you want to determine which of the financial assistance structure you're eligible for. One is cost share, and then disadvantaged communities are offered two other types of cost share financial assistance structures: match share and no cost share. Then your next task is what is it you're planning to do? A tree planting project, an inventory, etc. So you're going to need to choose what particular practices and activities you're going to be applying for. You will look to our offerings and see which fits you the best. And gather our financial assistance guidance and RFA documents and develop your project plan. Which on the right-hand side, this is what our expectations are and what the application really asks for is a shovel-ready project. And there are these 5 elements: a project needs statement, your goal statement, what are your outcomes going to be, the objectives, which are project milestone statements that say the X number of deliveries needed to achieve that goal, a work plan, how you're going to achieve those objectives, And then finally, an itemized budget, how you're going to complete those tasks to achieve those objectives. So that is your mission. So new in 25-1, you're going to see, and part of the reason we waited a little and opened up on the 15th versus the 1st, there is a new website. So if you do have any bookmarks saved on your computer, please delete them and start over, because those links are either broken, some will redirect you to our site, but safest thing is to start over, and we'll go through that. We have updated our guidance and application documents, really enhancements, corrections to make things easier for you and us also. Be sure to use these new documents. Another change in indirect administration, the de minimis rate now goes from 10% to 15% of the project cost can be applied for indirect administration. Just a reminder, you'll see the Inflation Reduction Act actually allows up to 20%, but not de minimis. It would have to be itemized. Look, some updates on, well, we will be requiring an outreach practice or activity for all projects, and that can be something depending on the scale of the project. May not need to be big, but I will touch a little bit more on that later. We also want you to use a communication professional to develop your outreach deliverables. If you're a larger municipality or organization, you may have a professional communications person on staff to do that work. If you don't, then you need to hire a professional communications staff professional to do that work. And then finally, just a reminder, we can't provide project guidance while the RFA is open. We can provide guidance on completing the application, which may be the best application, but today you can ask anything. So the 3 offerings, some changes here. Foundations, this is a single foundational urban forestry practice that'll move the municipality up the management classification. I'll share that with you in a section. Second, urban community forestry projects. This is the completion of multiple practices and activities and may not be eligible for the Inflation Reduction Act or the Foundation RFA. And then finally, the Inflation Reduction Act funding that will only fund projects that are located in climate and economic justice screening tool census tracts. I'll share that with you in a few minutes. If you qualify, this covers 100% of the cost of the project, and you can have terms of up to 3 years for these projects. All right. So let me now take you to where all your information and needs are. So ncforestservice.gov will bring you to our new website platform. You scroll down to the Urban Community Forestry box. Again, look at all we have to offer here, but where I'm going to take you first is the Financial Assistance Program. There's a couple of ways you can get there through this drop down, or if you look on the right-hand side, you will see Financial Assistance Program. I'm not going to read all this stuff to you. Take the time to do it yourself. I'll point out some key things. We define urban community forestry as 2 activities. Urban forestry is doing that planting, maintenance, and care of trees. Community forestry is engaging the community in the completion of those practices to serve a broader need. So we divide them up, and everything is organized around these particular definitions. Our primary goal here is to assist municipalities move towards sustainable management, and we use 6 measures to have them achieve, where we will put them in a managing category. So we are working to move folks up there addressing these. These are the foundational practices that we are working with our customers to achieve. Now, there are other things you may be applying for that are all contributing to that, but this is ultimately our primary objective. So read over this. Eligible practices and activities. Here are a list of the categories, and this is general. This applies to all of our work. We'll get into the specifics. There's a fact sheet that talks about the specific practices and activities within these categories that are eligible. Here are also those things that are not eligible. Common question is, can we plant shrubs? Yes, you can if it is your project, but the project should be predominantly planting trees. All right. The financial structure that I mentioned. So you will ultimately enter a grant contract with us, and you will pay to have your work completed and then be reimbursed for those expenses. So, you need to be prepared to cover those costs until you do a reimbursement. The reimbursement periods are negotiable. We would do that in a contract phase. But for all of these, it is a reimbursement grant. The default is cost share. ORD pays a service provider. This is costs only. A service provider to complete the services. And then we would be reimbursed a percentage. Typically, that's 50%. It covers purchased goods and services for the completion of the project. Disadvantaged communities, as defined here, are eligible for two other types of financial assistance structures. Each RFA will kind of mention what is available, if these are available, and what type. But the 2 structures are match share, that the project cost allows for indirect contributions instead of monetary for managing and completing the contract, or excuse me, the project. And examples are including the dollar value of employee time or volunteer time or donated goods and services. That is a matched shares type structure. And finally, no cost share, the one we all like the best. The grant covers the entire cost of the project. There is a page that you can read about the various funding sources we have and the restrictions and what they offer if you're interested in knowing what drives how we lay out the offerings. How to apply. As I mentioned, you'll be designing your project. Requests for applications, we offer them twice a year, this January, and then we also have another one in July. So you have 2 opportunities in a year to apply. Pointing out prerequisites, this applies to any of our grants. These are required. So look these over. All out. A biggie, is the FIN and unique ID number. You need to have those before you can apply. And then in terms of any of the professional service providers, here's what we expect for any urban forestry specialist. but anybody who is doing professionals must be credentialed in that task that's appropriate for them. We also expect you to use, when you're doing your work, to use the most current ANSI and ISA standards and best management practices. All right. Review and award, we'll get into this in a little more detail, but ultimately this is an application, so you're really going to be graded. You'll either qualify or you won't, and then you will be graded on these particular criteria. Most importantly, how well your project plan is laid out. All right, and then down here you see the request for applications. All right. So let me jump. I'm sorry. I jumped here to the resources and specifications page because this is where all the documentation you're going to need is. And you look here under the financial assistance drop down. Here you see general information, project information, request for application documents. Down here is, if you get into a contract, the various reporting forms that we have. If you are bored, you can look those over. It'll help you understand on the side of the contract side what it is we expect. So the biggies to start here are the practices and activities. You'll note most of these documents have a version date, and this was our most current one. So on the left-hand column are the practice activity categories, and then specific practices and activities within each of those categories. So category education and training, these are the various programs. These are deliverables. These practices and activities are a deliverable. You will, quite simply, your plan is going to be, say, we are going to do an education and training event or a product. And ultimately, we can all put our hands on that, and that's an accomplishment. So as you do your project plan, this is laid out about what deliverables are you going to provide. Education and training, inventories and assessment, various types of inventories and assessments, outreach, products and events, ordinances, standards and specifications, various types of plans, tree maintenance, and then finally tree planting. On the right-hand column are prerequisites and requirements. So for example, here on tree planting, you will see that an urban forestry professional must develop a review and approve the project. You'll need to do some sort of tree inventory to identify the sites, or a map that shows where the trees are going to be planted. You'll need a practice plan that says how those trees will be planted and how they will be cared for. And you need some specifications, all going back to we want to make sure this work is done properly. All right. So there's your primary document. The guidance and instructions for the developing your application gives you instructions for developing each of the 5 components. That needs an opportunity statement, your project goal, developing your project objectives, your work plan, and your budget. The project planner is a tool for you to bring this over here. As you're doing your plan, it gives you a placeholder to put all the information that you're going to need to. Then this allows you really to cut and paste into the application. So use this tool, your needs statement, your objectives. We're going to ask which, in addition to your objective statements, we're going to ask what are those practice and activities, those deliverables that you plan that are a part of this objective. Your project and advisory team, what your planned duration is, and your narrative. So these are all things that you will put into the application. So this is a tool to help you use to do that. There is an objective building tool. Help you define objectives. This tree planting and maintenance is specific to only really IRA projects that do authorize tree planting and maintenance on private property. Those are the guidance to if you are doing that work. The CJS tree planting and maintenance project, I'll talk about that in a little bit, but here importantly are copies of what are the 3 applications. The CJS is an additional, tree planting and maintenance is an additional application, but this is copies of what you're going to be asked for. So look those over. It's going to show you everything you need to answer when you start your application. The bottom here are 3 examples of awarded projects, cost share, IRA no cost share, and match share projects. So you can look at what this ultimately is the final outcome. Just to give you a picture, what you are looking at is the scope of work document that goes into the contract. This is successfully awarded recently. So when we say we want the needs statement, that's going to be right in there. Here is the project narrative. It goes right in the document. Here are the objectives. Payment terms, you kind of get a picture. Reporting that we're going to ask for. We will be asking for those specific deliverables so we know that you are accomplishing what you said to. The final report. Project plan, your work plan, and then finally a budget. So that's a good tool for you to see how this all fits together. And then down here are your work plan document and your particular budget forms, depending on which one of the structures you're applying for. Okay. So let's go back and look at each of the applications. And we're going to start with the foundations first. This is the simplest. So the foundations application is to apply for a single foundational urban forestry practices that helps the community move up that management hierarchy that I talked about on the financial assistance page. All the RFAs are laid out in a similar organizational structure here. So I'm going to highlight the things that may apply across that. Eligible organizations. Requirements. Again, this is the completion of one act, practice and activity. I mentioned all projects must include an outreach product. So this is going to be, you're going to do one practice plus some outreach. We're not telling you what or how many practices and activities you need to do. What you do needs to, one, at least engage and educate the public in your project. And then the second, if your work, may involve working in somebody's neighborhood, that you're going to be doing an outreach product or event to let them know that that work is going to happen. These are the eligible practices and activities. The financial assistance available, $150,000. Cost share structures that may be eligible. Maximum project cost of $100,000. That's including any match or cost share that you may have. So the total project cost. Term can be up to 12 months. In all cases, the award schedule is the same. You should plan on a July 1 start date. 2025, we will have conditional awards by March 31st. We will then be working with you to put your contract together. That has to be completed by May 31st. If we do, the final award is going to be done and your contract's going to be in place to start work July 1. You can read over the reporting. So then on project development, on the foundations, if you are applying for an inventory assessment, ordinance, policy standards and specifications, or plans, we have a predetermined set of objectives that you're going to use. So we won't be asking you for objectives in the application. What you will use this as you develop your work plan are these objectives, these 6 objectives. You'll see completion dates for the later ones out. You're going to kind of have to determine when that, depending on how long you want to complete the work, you'll set those due dates on those specific objectives, but you will lay that out in your work plan and your narrative, but use these objectives. The general order of thing is here, we want to make sure you have the policy and standards in place at the beginning. You're getting yourself organized and starting your team working. In all cases, you're going to be hiring some consulting services to do your work. So you're going to develop proposals and get bids for that work and award those work. Then you're going to do that. You're going to develop your outreach products. Then you're going to complete that consulting work as necessary. And then you're going to kind of do some outreach event at the end saying we're done and celebrate that accomplishment. So use these objectives, develop your work plan and your budget based on those. Then we have several other offerings. The outreach is for an Arbor Day celebration. There's no planning requirements that I just discussed before. What we are looking to fund is an Arbor Day celebration that could take place on North Carolina Arbor Day. Project budget up to $5,000. That's at 50%. That's $2,500 in grant funding. There's no outreach requirement that we talked above, and we would then work with you on your plans. So you'd be targeting next Arbor Day for this. We are also putting funding for staffing and consulting services, as well as professional certifications for your staff. Similarly, look that over. Under your instructions, and then you click down here below to apply for your application. Okay. Jumped back, and now we're into the Urban Community Forestry projects.
Andy,
So, yes.
just really quick, you may be able to close that left sidebar to make the window just a little bit bigger. The text is hard to read. It didn't help
Better?
much, but we'll take what we can get. Thank you.
How about that?
Oh, much better. Perfect.
All right, should have spoke sooner. If we have to go back, we will. Okay. So here we are to complete projects that include practices and activities from multiple practice and activity categories and are not eligible for the Inflation Reduction Act or the Urban Community Forestry Foundation's RFAs. Again, eligible organizations, requirements, projects are limited to the completion of a maximum 5 practice and activity categories, one of which those is required, the outreach. So you can add 2 other practice and activity categories for a total of 3. Again, there's that outreach minimum. So that's one of the 3. Eligible practice and activity categories. $100,000 available in assistance. Cost share structure and what is offered for disadvantaged communities. These are also up to 12-month projects. Maximum project cost $100,000. Fairly straightforward here. I want to highlight here you must go through the planning process, developing your own objectives. Although those objectives that we are, suggesting in the foundations may be helpful for you as you look at your project too here. Need to call out here and then ultimately apply for by clicking the application link down below. A little more description around the Inflation Reduction Act. A lot of money here available. Part of the Inflation Reduction Act, which was 2 years ago, 2022, awarded by Congress, or the law written by Congress. So the important thing about here is this will only fund projects that are in climate and economic justice screening tool census tracts. I'm going to note, and I made it, what it says is version 1, but in between now and the time we posted this, they put up a version 2. So don't worry about that. This is now version 2. It's just a little nicer. So what you will do here, you put in a search to your community. You can see address, so forth. I'll just give you an example, but the shaded areas are the CGES tracts. Kind of jump into Hickory here. These census tracts that are shaded out are eligible areas. So if I click on one of these, your project must take place within one of these CGES tracts. And as we're urban community forestry, it also needs to take place within the boundaries of municipality. We will be asking you to provide screenshots and also the tract number. But that's how you will get to it. All right. Similar format, eligible organizations must include an outreach product. Eligible practices and activities. Here, I will get to this a little bit, but we have a template project that is pretty much laid out for you, which is called the CGES Tree Planting Maintenance Project. And there's a separate application for that, but that is also under IRA. Otherwise, you're working on some other project. These are the eligible activities. The big one here, which is tree maintenance. None of our other programs fund tree removal, tree pruning, etc. So a great opportunity, not to mention that this is no cost to you, 100% grant coverage. 2.2, almost $4.4 million available total. You can have project terms up to 3 years, $300,000 per application. So you could be applying for up to $900,000. And I'll kind of explain how this works here when we get down to project development. The award schedules all and reporting that all applies is the same. On the project development, similar planning process. But if you are looking for a project that lasts longer than a year, we want you to break your project into 12-month phases. Be that 1, 2, or 3. If you have that, then you would be up to 3 years. You will have a a need statement and a goal statement that are the same for obviously all three of those phases. But what we would like you to do is create a work plan for each of those phases and a budget for each one of those phases, and submit an application for each of the phases. So if your project was 3 terms, you would submit 3 applications with a work plan and a budget for each one of them, objectives for each one of them. And in the application, there is a question that says, this is a multi-year project linking to another. You can look and you'll see that's how you will handle that. For the CJES tree planting and maintenance projects, what you will apply for at this offering or at any offering is what you plan to complete in the first year. This is a 3-phase project. I'll show you in a little bit about that. A 3-phase, and that depending on the scope of your project, you may be able to complete it in 1 year, but we also allow up to 3 years because some of the work it needs to be done in those phases. You need to know certain information that'll give you budget information for the next phase for you to develop your plans. So what you need to do is plan for completing what you're going to complete this year. If you're given a conditional award, we're committing to funding all 3 phases for this project. Okay, application information is all the same. And then again, here's where we have 2 applications, the one for the CJES tree planting and maintenance project, and the other for just another type of urban community forestry project. Okay, so I want to jump you back over to the resources and specifications page again. And back to call up a little more information about the CJES tree planting and maintenance project. Here's the fact sheet right here, the fact sheet to review, laying out each one of the phases, information to help you. The guidance to the development planting project, this you will need. So using our objective building tool, we have laid out this project. Again, it's 3 phases. You'll see phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. If you have not used this tool before, what on the right-hand column is picking all the deliverables by practice and activities, a little description of each of those, and then ultimately the order they're going to be completed. So based on this, over on here, we have laid out all of the objective statements similar to the foundation. So you will use these objective statements to complete the whole 3 phases. That's a total of 14 objectives. If you plan to do it in 1 year, again, use these objectives. You'll see question marks about which you need to put in when you're going to finish those, and then lay out your work plan. If you're going to do it all in 1 year, obviously you got to do all 3. If you're going to do in 3, we recommend doing each phase. Year 1 would be phase 1, year 2, phase 2, year 3, phase 3, etc. If you want to work a 2-year, then you're going to have to decide what phase 2 elements you're able to complete in that first year, and then do the last portion in your final year. Okay, so kind of wrapping up here and then open it up to questions. Take the time necessary to develop your project. Don't apply if you're not ready. For those of you new to this, if you're not ready, go ahead and apply. Plan to apply in January. Simpler is always better. Engage and utilize practice partners, and and we are available outside the RFA period to help you with project planning. Review all the documents and requirements. Biggies here: unique ID and FIN. The work needs to occur in a municipality or on tribal lands. We do require, if you are not the municipality, you got to require somebody from your municipality in your project. Plan and cover those administrative costs. We will fund that. The simplest is the 15% de minimis of the project cost will pay to somebody to do all the grant management work, which is, we do require a professionally published report at the end. We want it a 2 to 4 page infographic style that everybody will read through and go, wow, this is cool. We can share it with anybody and share out your accomplishments. In each of the budget forms, we put in a $1,500 estimate. Typically, that was what we understand one might cost for a 2 to 4 pager, but if you need a little more, you can budget that in. Now we will open it up to questions. The method here would be go ahead and put a question. If you've got any, Sarah, put your questions in the chat. We'll see how we go. We've got roughly 25 people here. Answer your questions and we'll go from there.
We do have a few questions in the chat, and just wanted to let people know, feel free to unmute your microphone if you have a follow-up question, once your question has been addressed. And so kicking it off, Isabel asks, what would count as a communications professional on staff? Do they need to have that as their title or just experience with communications? Amanda kindly put in the chat, thanks Amanda, that as a communications professional herself, she said that she thinks that implies that they have a degree in communications or an interdisciplinary degree that includes communications, or if they have a portfolio that shows their professional work. Andy, is there anything that we would add to that?
No.
Perfect. Thank you, Amanda. All right. The next question was from Andrew, and I answered it to some extent in the chat, but I will read it for the group. If they want to do an inventory for the cost share program and the cost for the whole project is $20,000, for example, he asks if their organization would pay the whole $20,000 and then afterwards get reimbursed, or does the grant cover half of the $20,000 and then they would pitch in $10,000 and the grant would cover the other 10. And I responded that the entity will pay for all of the expenses when they're due, and then 50% of those would be reimbursed by the grant upon review and acceptance of the request for reimbursement and supporting documentations. Contract terms include a reimbursement schedule, which is typically quarterly. Andy, did you have anything to add to that?
Yes. So, for example, our Inflation Reduction Act, if your municipality was completely covered by CGS tracks, would pay the whole cost. If you are a disadvantaged community as defined by the distressed counties, you would be eligible for match share structure. If you don't fall in one of those disadvantaged community categories, then you will be cost share. So $100 to complete the inventory, grant would cover $50, you would pay $50.
That is always on a reimbursement type schedule.
Yep.
Andrew also asks if there will be any money available to help pay for the new SFI Sustainable Forestry Initiative certification. There is not in this cycle, and Andy, as far as I know, we don't have any plans at this time to include that certification.
No.
Let's see. Zach says it looks like the IRA opportunity is different from the state's climate pollution reduction grant award. That is correct, Zach. And he says, if so, is there information about the CPRG program?
All I can tell you is what program offerings we have right now. CPRG is not one of them.
Maggie asks, she says the CGS maintenance and planting application is separate from the IRA application. Maggie, it's included. The Inflation Reduction Act funding is being offered in 2 separate applications this time. As Andy mentioned, that is new this year. Andy, would you like to speak to that?
Other than if that answers Maggie's question, I think if you saw in the RFA, if you're doing one of those CGS tree planting and maintenance project, it has its own application, but it is IRA. Does that answer your question, Maggie?
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Maggie. All right. Carla asks, are there multiple applications allowed, or should a larger scope be combined into one application? Andy?
Why don't you let her? What was
Sure. Carla, would you like to give us some more
Carla?
information?
Sure. Yeah, it was just in response to you said something about simpler is better. Keep it to 1 or 2 practices. So if we have more than that, is it better to just split things up so that they're simpler applications, or to just keep things combined?
Tell us a little bit about what you're planning to do. So the foundations is straightforward, right? That's one practice. You can design as complex a project as you like. Each of the applications gives you tools to do that. If you are not eligible for Inflation Reduction Act funding, you only have the foundations or the Urban Community Forestry projects application as a choice. And the Urban and Community Forestry projects, limits you to practices and activities from 2 categories, plus the outreach. So you're limited up to that. If you're looking at IRA, you can get real creative. And if you've got a big project in mind, that could be multi-year. If you can do it all in 1 year, you're going to be looking at, I think we're limiting it to 10 objectives. So as you go through that planning process, you decide what makes the most sense from a planning standpoint. But I'm always in favor of phasing projects. And if you want to choose, are you talking about IRA, Carla?
Yes, it would be IRA.
Okay. Yeah, so you have the flexibility there to, depending on your project, break it up into phases.
Great, thank you.
And multiple applications if it makes the most sense to you. And also us, when we see it, we want to see how that plan comes together, and you can get creative.
Right, very good. And as Andy mentioned, if we see a clear picture with the project plan, despite the size of the project, we have a good idea of what's happening. All right, Liz asks, she asks, and we may need some clarification from you, Liz, but I'll let Andy address this. Tree removals are not allowed, and are tree grates covered? So, a couple different questions.
So, Inflation Reduction Act covers tree removal. You would need to do tree planting also.
Mm-hmm.
Tree grates, no. Any infrastructure work will only be paid that will contribute to the health of the tree.
Okay.
Does
Got
that
it.
answer your question?
It does answer
that-
my question, yes.
Good. All right, very
So
good.
it's an interesting, because somebody could do a Main Street project where they have no, let's say you have no trees along your street and you have sidewalks and nowhere to put the tree in the sidewalk, right? So IRA would pay to create the pit to install the tree. Any work to the soil, drainage, irrigation to maintain that tree when it's planted?
They would pay for that too?
It would,
Okay.
but it's not, it would not pay for ripping up all your sidewalks and replacing
Right.
them all. It would only pay for enhancements that would enhance the health of the tree.
Okay. We have some very suffering, god-awful holly trees that Main Street recommended eons ago to be planted along the downtowns, and they need to be removed. So it would pay to have those removed and then augment the soil where those pits already are located and then plant new trees, correct?
Absolutely. And I would like you, to do it right.
Oh, yeah.
Because, those are tough sites, but
They
it'll
are.
cover, remove that soil, make sure you have drainage, proper
Mhm.
drainage, irrigation. One step out, depending on your expertise and who you have working it, I could envision removing some of the sidewalk between the trees
Uh-huh.
and creating, aerated soil and permeable pavers
Mm-hmm.
to increase the rooting area for those trees.
Okay.
You following me?
I am. Very much so. How about, what's your thought on structural soils? I get you.
It is used. There's a number of different things out there. It certainly works. But some of the research doesn't say great, but that's better than nothing.
True.
Because, right, you need that structure. If you're going to put permeable pavers over, if you're going to put bricking over it, obviously you need some structure, and that structural soil helps. And then there are enough spaces for roots to grow into those. So that's better than just a pit.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Where are you, Liz?
Sanford?
Sanford?
Yes.
Oh, great. Yeah.
All right, very good. Kay asks for the CGEST, the complete tree inventory format is already laid out. She wanted some clarification on what that means.
So the CGEST tree planting and maintenance. So envision, maybe that on a small scale, maybe that's a park or a school property. On the large scale, maybe it's your whole municipality. What this funds is tree planting and maintenance. So when I say, lays out the project, phase one, you will see ultimately is to do your inventory of the trees, as well as develop your outreach project. But that inventory says, okay, these trees need pruning, these trees need removing. So you need that inventory beforehand to know which trees you need that work. And then you can get contractors to give you estimates to do that work, to do phase two, which would be doing the tree work. You would inventory the planting sites when you're doing that inventory. In that second phase, you're going to do a planting plan, select the species, where they're going to go. And then in phase three, you're going to do your tree planting. So that's kind of the overview of that project.
Thank you, Andy. Marty asks, what are the assurances that the IRA funding awards will be honored for the term of the grant? These grants they'll be paid. But the follow-up question you may want to touch on, Andy, is there a risk of the incoming administration that may cancel this funding or affect the amount that is currently available?
The amount that's currently available, certainly, it's not out of the realm of possibilities. But we have contracts in place. They aren't going to be pulled more than likely. It's pretty low. But I can't say no, absolutely. The money we have on contract. But yeah, it's possible. But then if you have a contract to do that work, so it's unlikely, but I can't say no.
And I just want to be mindful of everybody's time with Zach's question, which is going to be relevant to you all. When is the recording going to be available? We did have our new website launch, and so the recording will go to a different branch for processing. And so, we do not have a specific date, but typically that is within a couple of weeks. Andy, do you think that's a fair estimate?
Yeah.
Very good. And Isabel, I will follow up with you directly. If anybody wants to stay on, we can address Isabel's question, which is which grant would specifically cover tree maintenance. I would venture that there are several different applications that could address that, and it may just depend on the context of your project.
Well, no, only IRA covers tree maintenance.
There you go. Scratch my
Any
statement.
Any other questions? Any other questions, Sarah?
All right, that is all of the questions that are in here in the chat. So thanks everybody. We really appreciate you coming and joining us today.
I have a question.
Oh, Kay says
Yeah,
that
I
Go
want to
ahead.
go back if it's okay. I had asked the question about the tree inventory, and I think I might have misunderstood when you were going through it, when you said that that format was laid out. And then when you reiterated phases of following an inventory, that's what you meant by it's laid out. Is that correct? The tree inventory itself, the steps for conducting a tree inventory is not what you meant. You meant the overall picture. Is that correct?
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. My other question.
We do have though, Kay, we have specifications that you can use to give to contractors to give you an estimates.
Right, and I have talked to Justin about that previously. If I could go on to my other question, and you addressed it very quickly, saying you wanted qualified people to do the work. And specifically, I was concerned about the requirement of a forest or horticultural degree plus certification as an arborist and risk assessment professional. If the person does not have a degree but owns a arborist business, has certification, blah, 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 can they do the inventory? Would they be qualified?
Depending on the scope of it, they would need to be a certified arborist at a minimum.
Right.
Yeah, yes. They should be tree risk. They should be tree risk qualified too.
Right.
But all of it, if they've never done any, you would want to have somebody that's done an inventory. Now, if it's a small project, are you talking about a small property?
I am.
Okay, yeah.
Where we are in this small community, we're required, unless the qualifications aren't available locally, we're required to hire local services. And I just wanted to make sure about this qualification thing before I got too deep into it.
Yeah, talking to us, and this is true of anybody, we can answer those kind of questions. If anybody's listening still in the recording, don't hesitate to call and ask us about qualified people. But yes, Kay, we look at it, and this is an application, you're not signing on to do anything.
Sure.
Yeah. We want good estimates. You tell us who that person is, qualified. We would call and talk to you about that qualify. But it sounds like if you've got somebody that's going to, on a small property, inventory the trees to identify their needs, and they are a certified arborist, and they have some experience. We kind of like to see 3 to 5 years experience. I think our standard is, then yeah.
Okay. I'll talk with you specifically.
Oh, great question.
Thank you.
I have a quick question, Andy, Maggie. Just on the IRA funds, is that awarded on a reimbursement basis as well?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any further questions? All right, very good. Well, thank you all. As Andy said, we're here for you, so give us a call. And while our guidance is limited during the open period, we are happy to help as much as we can.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.